Hello. In the previous episode, I talked of cannons. And if you permit me this, that episode would have been Chekhov's cannon, as it were. Because just like a play that shows a gun in the first scene, you know someone's dying by that very gun. And so, obviously, if I talk of a cannon in the previous episode, I will now be doing my canon. I am, of course, John, and this is episode 2, part 2 or 3 ish of station identification. And this is my personal canon. I'm going to do it in sort of a reverse order. And I will start with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That goddamn riverboat ride. That goddamn thing haunted my dreams. Jesus Christ. Personal canon is not just films that were positives in your life. Sometimes negative things are there too. I don't groove on horror films. Horror is a well-beloved thing among the physical media devotees. Not me. But that's okay, because that makes everything great. The kind of horror I like are the spooky, not the scary, not the gory. You got Hammer films. You got Roger Corman. You got the Universal Monsters. Even creepy Italian horror has a place, somewhat, because it's all atmospheric. And the blood is obviously fake. But this happy family movie about finding someone to give a candy company to scared the ever-loving shit out of me as a small child. And you know none of those other kids survived. Even Charlie, he probably died of diabetes. The only kid that maybe survived is Mike TV. But he came out of it action figure sized. Fits in his mom's pocket. God damn. That movie. I mean, yeah, it's a classic, and Gene Wilder is an amazing guy, but oh my God, did that movie do numbered me. Up next, The Spy Who Loved Me. When multiple people play the same part, everybody has their favorite. James Bond is no different. And I agree. Sean Connery is the best Bond. And I love his films. But The Spy Who Loved Me with Roger Moore is my favorite. It's James Bond firing on all thrusters. Everything works. You've got great but believable gadgets, including the Lotus submarine car. You've got a love interest who's way more than a Bond girl. She's a capable spy working for the other side. You've got the hired thug with the metal teeth, Jaws. Awesome. And you've got a story where the impossible stakes are backing up an implausible story, just as it's meant to be. And Roger Moore is never better, just as Carly Simon said. Just fantastic film. Four Weddings and a Funeral. This is darn near a perfect film. And it begins a stretch of small British rom-coms that were all in their way fantastic. Many produced by the same company. Working title. A lovely soundtrack of covers, and an interesting take on 90s era alternative filmmaking, where the majority of the film is really, like the title says, four weddings and a funeral. There's very little extra. But it's still an outstanding story. And great characters. Ending with Simon Callow as Gareth. He is just the T being crossed. Just fantastic. Speed Racer. This is the most recent addition to this list. And I got a couple reasons why. As a child, I, like many others my age, watched the cartoon. I'd watch Speed Racer before I went to elementary school for years. Always wished for a live action film to see the Mach 5 in the real world. So there's that. And then there's the fact that they could have just phoned in a live action film and everybody would have bought a ticket. It makes my Canon because the Wachowski sisters deliver a masterpiece about corporate greed, the power of combat car racing, and a live action anime Technicolor explosion. When you see John Goodman as Pop's Racer and he's got the wrestling champion ring, you know those two understood the little things that make up the show. But they also got the heart of it by showing Susan Sarandon comforting a young Speed after Rex's death. They got the family part of it. It's visually gorgeous with an innovative narrative structure that evokes racing around the track, but moving forward. It's hard to describe. There's just this swirl that makes up the story. It's much more than a film of auto racing. There can be only one. Highlander. You want so much to know more of his life, more of the world of the immortals, but you also wish it could have been the only one. It's the follow-up TV show that kind of helps, but the sequels are a hot mess, and sometimes less is more. The film hits me in a number of places. As a historian, you've got this amazingly cool concept. A notion of a great contest happening in the shadows of our past. And the themes just get you in the feels. Great action, great soundtrack. In the fight to be the one. Who knew that the actual fight was to finally be allowed to not live forever. Jaws. First R-rated film I ever saw. The scene on the orca with the 3 actors, we all know it. We've all seen it. Actors pray for those kinds of scenes. And Robert Shaw knocks it out of the park. Oh, killing sharks is personal for Quint. It's just too bad for Quint that it appears that it's personal for the shark, too. The Mummy. The Brendan Fraser version, not Boris Karloff. With a surprise visit from Dr. Bombay, veteran actor Bernard Fox's RAF pilot, Winston Havelock. And then you get Imhotep, who's not a bad guy, but circumstances put him on this path. Do you feel bad for him? Yeah. Should he got done the way he did? No. Kill him? Yeah. Curse him? No. On the other hand, he's going to use every little bit of what he has become to get what he wants. A perfect balance of humor and adventure. Yeah. And the actor who plays Benny is outstanding. So well played. Yes, he's on the wrong side of the river. And yes, he will get his comeuppance due to the heel turn. And so deserves it. Just amazingly good. Running Scared. It's too bad Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines never made another movie together, as they were fantastic. There are very few film duos that work so good together, and these two are great. Billy Crystal plays his Chicago cop straight, but he's got a sense of humor, rather than as a funny guy who can be a cop. And if you only know him for his purely comedic roles, this is refreshing. His bit pretending to be one of his own confidential informants to throw off the other detectives because he's trying to save his wife or ex-wife. Always remember this. That the voice he uses with him playing Jeopardy. Oh no, they don't know what Deuteronomy means. Mother, can I have another cup of cocoa with the little marshmallows? It's tied with Miracle Max as what I think is Billy Crystal's best funny voice. 12 Angry Men. The quintessential one man against everyone story, and how he slowly flips that script. Henry Fonda. I could have chose a number of Henry Fonda films, most notably Fort Apache or Mr. Roberts. Henry Fonda was the kind of actor that made me want to be an actor. And if it wasn't for stage fright as a kid, which I had a crushing case of, I could not get in front of people. I might have done that. Side note, supporting role by the voice of Piglet. Blazing Saddles. There was going to be no argument that there would be a Mel Brooks film here. It was just an argument within myself of which Mel Brooks film would be here. I went with the classic. It's connected to the other films by actors who show up in some of these other films. That being a message film by its witty dialogue, by its humor, and fourth wall breaks. I love a good fourth wall break. It just, something about that wink and nod to the people out there. The Manchurian Candidate. This is one of those films I saw late at night. It didn't get shown very often. And for some reason, it was one of those ones I never remember the title to. And I would always describe it to people and get all the details right. It was always that meaningful to me. But I always got it confused in some ways with 7 Days in May. Like, I would think that this movie was 7 Days in May. Obviously, it's not. This is the much better film. And Shaw might not have been the kindest, warmest, most wonderful human being. But you can't argue that in the end he was the bravest. Smokey and the Bandit. Pausing to get a Diablo sandwich while chasing the bandit, while remarking to his son, the groom, who just got jilted by Sally Field, that he couldn't get him any hush puppies, as there was no time for that. And he loses his bride and he can't even get any hush puppies. Mike Henry could not catch a break. All he can do is hold his dad's hat to his head because it's already the roof of the car is already torn off. Because Sheriff Buford T. Justice is on a high-speed pursuit. And fans of the film heard that in Jackie Gleason's voice. 70s and 80s Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham movies were just so fun. And if it wasn't for a small little indie film by a little known filmmaker, it would have been the most known film of 77. I always thought Paul Williams and Pat McCormick should have dropped into other films as Big and Little Enos, just to mess with people. I thought those two characters were just funny as hell. Silver Streak. Watched this every chance I got when it was on HBO. The problem is there's problems with the movie. And it comes down to Gene Wilder in blackface. It was a problem then. It's a problem now. It'll always be a problem. And Richard Pryor was right on having it be seen as unbelievable in the reality of the world that was that movie. When he had African Americans look at Gene Wilder and not believe, what's this? But white people believing it in that world. I believe the characters there knew it was bad too. But I'm also of the belief that Pryor's character realized within the reality of the world that they lived in, this would get them back on the train, which was their goal. They had to save the girl. There are other problems too, but Gene Wilder is a delight. He's got a twinkle in his eye. And when Gene Wilder gets that twinkle in his eye, it's fantastic. They make other movies together. I know others really, really like Stir Crazy. I wasn't as much of a fan of that. This is the one that I always loved. And it's interesting how some films compound. Silver Streak and Star Wars led me to watch a movie known as The Frisco Kid that had Harrison Ford and Gene Wilder in, which is a hoot. It's just a small little film. It's not amazingly good. It's just fine, but give it a shot. Star Trek. Specifically Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I had been a fan of Star Trek since I could walk. But that's a TV show, and this is about feature films. However, I'll continue. My mom always said that when it came on, I would sit still, and that allowed her to get some things done, like a load of laundry, the dishes. And the motion picture gave Star Trek fans Star Trek on the big screen. And the Enterprise looked fantastic. The only problem is all they made was a large screen episode of Star Trek. It wasn't a movie. And fans wanted a movie. This is a movie. And they could have probably stopped after this one, and fans would have been okay, because it's the best of all the films. And it hinges on a choice. Kirk calls Scotty, "We need warp drive, or we're all dead." And Spock quietly slips off the bridge, making a decision. The needs of the many. And I cried when he dies. And the payoff comes in the next movie with, conversely, the needs of the few. And cried again when the Enterprise blew up. Just as much a character. Flash Gordon. Great. Campy. Fun. Amazing soundtrack by Queen. Max von Sydow. He's got whole sets worth of scenery stuck in his teeth from him chewing on it. And again, there's another choice. And Flash doesn't flinch. You meet the moment. And the choice makes itself. Engulfed by fire, War Rocket Ajax must be flown into the lightning field to save the day. And just reading those lines that I wrote down illustrates how serious and how campy this is. And like Baron declares in the film, he's going to follow where Flash is going because of the commitment that Flash will show. Just amazing. And it all changes in the summer of 1977 with that small independent film. There's a world prior to Star Wars, and then there's a world after Star Wars. And if you saw it that summer, there was no question about who shot first because Han Solo just shot. And then he paid to have the mess cleaned up. Him shooting was him choosing to survive. Later in the film, coming back for Luke was him not only choosing to survive, but now he's choosing to live, choosing to have a chance at life. And over the next couple films, not only that, he grows into a person who deserved not only to live, but to love, and in the end be loved back. Luke, for his part, goes through the hero's journey, as seen by Joseph Campbell. You've got that going on. Han Solo goes on a different journey, but a more personal journey. Choosing to live, choosing to love. Now, Lucas, for his part, will make changes to the story, and that's fine. It's his story to tell. But this is how I see the film. Solo always shot. Now, Lucas could have shown Greedo firing after Solo shot as a reflex, because Greedo was there to shoot Han. So Han was threatened. But Han Solo needed to make that choice, and he needs to make it right there and setting his arc forward. His Girl Friday. Some of the snappiest dialogue ever between old lovers. Rosalind Russell gives as good as she got, and Cary Grant is at his very best. Timeless. This led to me watching all sorts of Cary Grant films, both serious and humorous, or if lucky, both. In some ways, it's too bad the film couldn't have been adapted during the Hays Code. But you could counter that with the restrictions on it, make it better. And sometimes you have to push those lines but not cross them. Sometimes it's not what is said, but how you say it or how you don't say it. And it's got one of the best fourth wall breaks ever when Cary Grant describes Russell's fiance as a Ralph Bellamy looking guy. And of course, the fiance is played by noted actor Ralph Bellamy. The film also exposed me to Howard Hawks as a director, and I believe he's one of the best directors of the golden age. You could say probably one of the best directors ever, as he could direct any genre and do it well. Just fantastic. And last, certainly not least, A Matter of Life and Death. David Niven professing his love for Kim Hunter as he is flying up in his shot-up bomber, coming back from his nighttime raid over Germany. They both know that he's bought it. He's got no parachute. That plane's on fire. Everyone's gone. And then he doesn't die. He wakes up washed ashore in England on the beach. What an amazing start. I am so glad I kept watching that one late night showing when I first saw this film, because I have received a treat that I have enjoyed for 50 years. And in a lot of ways, it represents watching all of those late night films and all the gems I was exposed to. Yeah, you can't beat those. But this is my canon, as it is now. It could change in 6 months. It changed from 6 months ago. And I hope it pushes you to take time to examine your personal canon. So, this is John, and I hope to see you again at station identification.